Welcome back to the Kovacs Report comic book review show with my good friend Jimmy X. Hi, Jimmy. How's your week been?
Hey, Angelo, really good, thanks.
Yeah, good. So lots of comics to talk about. Let's get straight into it. We're a full spoiler show. We will spoil your books, so read them before you watch the show. Let us know what you think in the comments, whether you like the book we've read or you dislike the book we've read, whether you agree with us or disagree. We choose 5 books each, review those, and we choose one for each other to review. And the first book this week is Spectacular Spider-Man number 3, Weisman and Ramos on writing and art duties. So a quick recap is Arcade and Metallo have built an Arcadium in the New York sewers. And I think it's some kind of matrix system where they kidnap people from the Coffee Bean coffee shop where the Spider-Men drink their coffees for their little mandates, which are supposed to be out of costume, but they inevitably end up in costume. And the general gist of it is, while they're in these dream states, they allow the person to live a perfect life with the perfect loved one, in the hope that if you're going to reveal your secret identity to anyone, it would be the person you love the most. So that's the general gist of the story. So jumping through to issue 3, we have lots of these then and nows, and that's how they tell this whole story. So they show you what they're seeing in this matrix world. For example, Peter's married to Gwen Stacy and has 2 kids. Some of the other friends of theirs at this coffee shop where they drink at, they're also experiencing the same kind of thing. And interwoven into all this arc is a bit of a murder mystery. There's a dead body in a lab that's been reduced to skeleton and bones and dust and smoke. So issue 1, like I said, was absolutely fantastic. Fantastic dialogue, great fight scenes. The relationship between Miles Morales and Peter Parker was absolutely fantastic. Exactly what you want in a Spider book. But it deteriorates in issue 3. It's not so sharp. It's not so clever. All these flashbacks where they're trying to show you the dream state and the real state become really, really confusing. And it just descends into an absolute confusing mess. And the big reveal that, Metallo and Arcade are behind all of this is a bit of a letdown. I expected more with the strength of the first issue. So I wouldn't recommend it at all. And it's such a shame because I think this is one Spider book out there that had a lot of potential. But Marvel's putting out, I think, pretty poor Spider-Man books at the moment. What about you, Jim? I think you read it too, didn't you?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It started off really strong. The first issue was hilarious. There was a barista uh, regular customer joke that my wife, an ex-barista, found really, really funny. I had to pull her in and show her it. But yeah, by the time you reach issue 3, the quality has declined. You're right; it was confusing. The use of showing the perfect days and people's relationships. It wasn't quite narratively clear. Yeah, I agree with you, but I will stick with it. I like Greg Weisman. His work on Gargoyles is great, and yeah, I'll.
Good. Okay, well, I'm glad that you liked it. Moving on to one of your books this week, Spider-Gwen, the Ghost Spider.
Yeah, Spider-Gwen, the Ghost Spider, issue 1, published by Marvel, obviously, written by Stephanie Phillips, art by Chris Capana. I've never read anything by these creators before, and the cover by Mark Brooks, who I remember from Deadpool, Agent X with Gail Simone a few years ago. Very cool stuff. So I want to talk about my history with Gwen Stacy. My first ever comic book I ever read was a manual given to me by my grandparents, which reprinted Spider-Man Amazing Spider-Man 121, 122, the classic story. The night Gwen Stacy died, where the Goblin
What a
throws her from the
start.
George Washington Bridge. Yeah, I mean, I never looked back after that.
Yeah, I bet.
So this concerns another Gwen, made popular in the Sony series of movies, Spider-Verse films. Um, but now she's trapped in the 616 by the TVA under witness protection. We don't know why yet. That's not been revealed. So she's trying to open a bank account at the start of the issue, but of course she's got a dead woman's name. So she obviously runs into some problems there. Luckily, it's interrupted by a bank heist that's organised by the Kingpin's son, the Rose, and costume vigilante, the Black Tarantula. And she's warned by her handler from the TVA that if she goes into action as Spider Gwen again in the 616, the regular Marvel universe, she will die. And
Oh
she
dear.
completely ignores that advice. Goes into action again to fight Craven the Hunter, who's also been brought in by the Rose and the Black Tarantula to stop her and stop her from interfering any further. And she's in a completely ironic twist. she's stabbed by Craven the Hunter and thrown into the water on the same site where she died, where the 616 version of her died.
Oh wow! So they've called back to the original, dramatic story. So exciting stuff. It's a good book. Then you recommend it?
I've got to say, I absolutely loved it. The writing was great. The art was really, really, really good.
I might pick it up myself, Jim.
Yeah, I'll stick with it.
Fantastic. So keeping on the theme of spiders, brace yourself.
Oh no!
Amazing Spider-Man number 50. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Mr. Wells, what are you doing to Spidey? Why are you doing it to Spidey? So, it's issue 50, so it's a landmark number. So Marvel pump out these oversized anniversary editions, jumbo annual type form. There's a number of stories in there. There's a main story, and there's some little anecdotal, little short stories written by other creators and artists. But the main story is one very familiar to Spidey fans. It carries on from something that's been going on, I think, in the other Spider books, which is Norman Osborn. His sins have been supernaturally cleansed, right? Using Craven the Hunter's magic spear, it sucked all the Sid into him, and he became a force for good. I know, hold on, it gets worse. So this good Norman Osborn, he's running his company, Oscorp, very ethically, trying to do everything good for the world, and he's become the Gold Goblin. I know, if we haven't got enough Spider-Men in any of these universes, we've got enough goblins, right? Anyway, Peter is working for Oscorp, but it's his day off. So while it's his day off, Dr. Connors, as we know, is the Lizard, and his lab assistant, Doug, poor Doug, they are watching the living brain, which has been sealed in this special room where it can't transmit anything or have access to technology. So it's completely sealed off to him and the world. And it's beaming this message out, which their computers pick up and they decipher. So he calls Norman and says, hey, we've got to get Peter Parker in because this message says Peter Parker is not Spider-Man. So a little bit of backstory. The reason the brain is there is from another previous story, because he knows Peter Parker is Spider-Man, and they're keeping him there so that he can't reveal that to the world. All right? Okay, so jump back to Norman. Norman gives Peter Parker a call. Parker goes into Norman's office and says, oh, hi, what's going on? What's going on? He says, I've spoken to Dr. Connors, and the brain's given us a second message. And he starts reading this message, but he's cut off. And he goes, Chalice, Starlight. And then as he says those words, this secret compartment, like every villain has, the door slides open and his beautiful gold goblin costume is there hanging on a hanger with all this tech in his kit. And he goes, oh, okay. There's your kit, no panic. Norman hasn't gone weird. But then he finishes the message with the last word, which is aggregate. And then that compartment slides round and it's the Green Goblin's costume, right? Oh no, maybe Osborn is actually bad again. Guess what? He is bad again. So it's another one of those classic stories where, Norman's been reformed, but actually no, he hasn't. Spider-Man didn't really trust him. Anyway, I'm going to cut a big part of this right out and get it to the end. So they have a little fight. Spidey tricks him into going back to his lab. But before he can do that, Norman releases this green gas, which removes all of Spidey's powers. So he's just a man now, right? Which is why when they get to Spidey's lab, Spidey has this trap that releases some gas too, which removes all of Norman's powers. So it's mano a mano. And I'm thinking, what's the point? Right? Is it going to be this man versus man story where we get to, we get this really interesting story where these two individuals stripped of all the bullshit, of superhero, supervillainy, fight each other? No, it's not. Anyway, it turns out that also in another arc, Norman secretly implanted some trigger in Peter Parker's brain, and he utters those words, and then Peter becomes this weird, maniacal, a bit like a mad Craven the Hunter type character. And then the story stops, runs through all the other little mini stories that they've included in this sort of annual. And then it comes back to the living brain, who's no longer the living brain, right? So the living brain has now birthed a new version of himself by cannibalizing his brain, and now he's like a walking, talking, sort of semi-Terminator looking walking brain, and he's shouting at Dr. Connor that they've got to go and help Peter, because apparently Spider-Man is no longer Spider-Man anymore. So maybe the living brain was seeing something from the future and seeing Spider-Man transformed into this other type of being. And that's really it. Very, very forgettable. No one really cares about what's going on. The characters are uninteresting. The story just dies, really. And I think it's another one of those annuals that Marvel puts out to up the price and get the sales figures up. So definitely won't recommend that at all to anyone. Hopefully Spider-Man one day will be back to being good. Don't read it. Move on to another book, which I've got a feeling that you're going to tell me is really, really good, even though I hate the whole Blood Hunt thing. Go for it, my friend. Tell me what's going on in Blood Hunt 2.
Yeah, so Blood Hunt issue 2, Marvel's big summer crossover for this year, written by Jed MacKay with amazing art by Pepe Larraz, the cover by the same person. So to give it a little bit of a recap, Blood Hunt.
Oh, please.
The vampire cult, the structure, led by their new leader, Blade, use a Dark Force plan using all the powered individuals, villains and heroes with Dark Force powers, powered by the Darkhold, to block out the sun, therefore instigating basically 30 days of night on an epic scale. So they decimated the Avengers, captured certain members of them, taken over a Wakandan living city, and turned Doctor Strange into a vampire. That's all in the first issue. In the second issue, we kick it off straight away by Black Panther being turned by Blade as well. So we've got Black Panther and Doctor Strange on the side of the vampires now. And also we've got disparate packs of different characters in the Marvel Universe. So we've got Brielle Brooks, a.k.a. Bloodline, the daughter of Blade, with the same powers as him, with the Daywalker, being escorted from Atlanta by Dracula. And also Moon Knight's proteges, Tigra and Hunter's Moon, meeting up with Miles Morales. So all familiar faces here, and they're all heading to the Sanctum Sanctorum to try and regroup and find a way to stop this vampire massacre from carrying on. So the Avengers decimated. We got the remaining Avengers: Captain America, Captain Marvel, Vision, and Iron Man. They have an epic fight with the superpower vamp team, the Blood Coven, proving that they won't lay down for the vamps. One particular amazing moment in this is the Vision channels the solar energy into his body, becoming a living sun, and makes him retreat, which is absolutely awesome. So at the end, they get to the Sanctum Sanctorum, find that Doctor Strange's astral form's been pulled out of his body by his wife, Clea, and it's just his actual body that's possessed by a vampire. And then Miles Morales turns to a vampire, suddenly, for no discernible reason. So
naturally, right?
I'm on board for the next issue of this.
Oh dear! So you loved it, didn't you? You're really enjoying this.
Widescreen, huge Marvel crossover fun. I'm always down for it.
Right? Shall I just add my little 5 cents in here?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, mate. I'm going to say this. You describe the events of Blood Hunt, and it sounds amazing. It sounds like this is a really, really interesting story, loads of action, lots of in-depth stuff going on. But the reality of it, for me, is it's one of the worst Marvel events I've ever read. The dialogue is cheesy. Characters randomly turn up just to move the plot on. It's so childlike cartoon, sort of, I'll get you next time. It's awful. I feel like it's written for toddlers, but I'd rather hear you tell me what happens, because it's a much better sounding story. So Blood Hunt's not for me. Another book that's not for me is probably Union Jack the Ripper, but you might change my mind. Go on. Okay, this is a tie into Blood Hunt, right? Oh, come on, please tell me it's good.
Union Jack the Ripper by an all-UK creative team. They're written by Cavan Scott. He's done some great work on Doctor Who comics and also the High Republic novels for Star Wars, as well as comics in that universe too. With art by Kev Walker in 2000 AD. Eh? You've got to love Kev Walker, right?
I'm a lifelong 2000 AD reader, so when I hear the words Kev Walker, it always makes me smile. So, okay, a positive thing. Let's go.
Right. So Blood Hunt is global. We switched the scene from New York City to Manchester, England.
Wow.
And it's been decimated by, I'm going to coin the term Vampocalypse right now. That's mine. That's copyrighted Jimmy X.
Okay, I'll let you have that one.
So yeah,
Vampocalypse.
beautiful, gritty, gory artwork from Kev Walker here, reminiscent of Jock. If anyone's familiar with Jock, you know what you're looking forward to, the losers and stuff like that. So yeah, it's great. The UK vamps are running wild, referring to victims as blood bags and meal deals,
Oh,
which yeah, it's brilliant. Union Jack, someone who really couldn't give two damns, enters the fray, blowing his way through the vamps with gunshots and swords. So there's a group of survivors. I think it's a family and a few other people, led by a female police officer, Mara Sayal. And she's like, "Oh, you got to help me get these people out of here." And he's like, "You can do what you want, love. You mistake me for someone who gives a shit." So it's got that kind of anti-hero attitude. So he's wounded, and they had to drive in a van to a safe house. And he's like, "Yeah, turn right at the next Greg's."
okay, if you're American or outside the UK, Greg's is a huge cultural phenomenon over here. It's a bit like your McDonald's, yeah. So basically, it's a shop where you go to get a hot sausage roll, a pastry, a cake, a bite to eat for lunch, So that's what Greg's is.
Yeah. So they get to the safe house, and he finds it. Well, one of the survivors is a nurse, but then she reveals when he hands her a stapler, he's like, "Yeah, go on, love. I'll give you a stapler. Get stapling." And she's like, "Oh no, I'm actually a veterinary nurse. So if you want deworming or your claws clipped, I'm your girl."
Very British tongue-in-cheek humour, right?
It's a really funny, really fun book. Yeah. So Mara finds out that the Union Jack's actually harboring a vampire in his basement, chained up in a bathtub full of blood. It's a very gory book, and it's not even like an adult only title. So yeah, it's very gory.
We accidentally slipped to the next book there, so I'm just putting it back.
Oh,
forgive us.
Okay.
This is only our second show. It's only our second show. These things will happen.
Yeah, so it turns out to be the former UK superhero Bulldog, one I'm not familiar with. I know Union Jack from Captain America when Ed Brubaker and Steve Epting were on the title. So Bulldog's getting it. He's well, it's kind of a frenemy. He's Jack's clearly protecting him from being killed, but Bulldog's got no love lost for Jack, and he's like, "Oh, missing the good old days, mate. Bangers and mash, and Strictly on telly."
It's a very British dialogue there, right?
Like I said, I had so much fun with this book. So yeah, the issue ends with the vamps arriving at the safe house, asking the Union Jack, "What's it going to be, death or glory?"
Wow, death or glory, just another story. So it's a nod to I think the Clash, right? Okay, so good. So you know what? I'll give it a go. I think you may have changed my mind. I'll let you know next week what I think of it.
Definitely the best Blood Hunt tie-in so far.
Okay, and now correctly onto the next book, which is Black Widow and Hawkeye #3. Marvel is celebrating, the relationship of these two, which has spanned 60 years. This book, I think, is intended to be a little nostalgic look back and just show you how much they love each other. Very quick recap: Black Widow has a symbiote and the powers that come with that. Hawkeye is being chased around the globe by assassins and Russian and American governments for apparently assassinating a Russian minister at a peace talk. The reveal is he says that he's aware of it. He did it. It's him. Maybe something's wrong with him, but he doesn't believe he's been taken over or mind controlled. So something's obviously behind all this. And as we get through issue 1 or 2 to issue 3, which is what we're reviewing today, an assassin by whoever's behind all of this mayhem has been sent to kill Hawkeye and poisons him. Natasha's there, so in order to save Hawkeye, she has to use her symbiote, and I think some of it goes in Hawkeye. So now Hawkeye's another Marvel character, has his own personal venom. I think it's a bit of a trend at the moment. Deadpool's got one too. So again, not a great book. There's some nice little flashbacks where they're in their most classic costumes. It nods back to the past and the stories of the past and shows how their relationship, has built over the years and why they're important to each other. That part was kind of nice. But ultimately, it all culminates in a showdown between the big villain. So this assassin who thinks he's killed Hawkeye with the poison goes back to this secret villain and says, "Oh, I've killed him." And he goes, "No, you probably haven't." So this villain kills the assassin, reveals himself to be Damon Dran, right? You have the same look on your face I had when I read that. So Damon Drant, I know, he's some Z-list, I think, old villain of Daredevil, and eventually becomes a villain of Natasha's, and she kills him off, I guess, or does something to him in her book years ago. Yeah, not good. Again, very derivative, very boring. And I won't be picking it up next week. I wouldn't recommend it. It's a shame because they do get Black Widow quite wrong a lot of the time because such a great character. But I wouldn't recommend it. And I would definitely move on to the next book before I say anything more about this one. Because it gives me a bit of a flashback when I do. So The Butcher's Boy, my recommendation to you, a horror comic. I know you're not a big fan of horror, but I thought, you know what? Let's see.
Yeah, I'm really not a horror fan. Okay, so The Butcher's Boy from Dark Horse Comics, co-written by Landry Q. Walker and Panel Vaughan, with art by Justin Greenwood and a cover art by Justin Greenwood too. I'm not familiar with any of these creators, got to be said. So yeah, like I said, not a horror fan, especially horror comics. 30 Days a Night and Lock and Key are about as far as I go, and Lock and Key is not really a horror at all.
Not really, no.
Got horrific moments, but... so this is set in the Pacific Midwest of America. So it's split between 3 days. It's a storytelling device between 3 days. So it's Thursday before the incident, Friday the incident, and Saturday after the incident. So we get quick cut visceral scenes of visceral horror framed in red, scenes of people speaking in dead language, if you say so, rituals. A car crash, lots of blood, a woman walking along holding her own head in her hands.
Oh, even better.
Yeah, I was not a fan. So it's a typical horror movie tropes with 6 teens, people getting together for a weekend, a road trip to a ghost town, mining town. Issues include a girl bringing along their new boyfriend unexpectedly to clash with the group. Another girl pissing off the guy who's driving as he felt that she ghosted him previously, and someone dealing with the anniversary of the death of a sibling.
They really did get all the tropes in, didn't they?
Yeah, it's
I don't
all
think
there.
they missed one.
And don't get me wrong, I thought the characters were well written. It was an enjoyable thing, but then we get to this ghost town, mining town that I mentioned. It's a site of a grisly folk horror style serial killer murders 100 years previously. So they're hanging around, taking Instagram pictures. They get hungry. They find a diner. In the background, things are getting uneasy. Sketchy-looking locals are starting to come out of the shadows, and dogs with bloody bones in their mouths. No phone service. I mean, come on. So they wander into this diner, and one of the flash forwards gives you the idea that they've eaten tainted meat. They're spiraling out. Maybe they're having visions because of this tainted meat they've eaten in the future.
I hope it's.
But anyway, they're eating these burgers, and they're chatting, and they're all falling out, and they're pissing off the driver. So the story is the folk story horror thing is the butcher got drunk. He wandered into the mine, starving, but he found something to eat in there. And when he came out, he was changed. And then he died, and they buried him in the mine. And then I'm not mentioning what comes next because
what did he do?
I don't think it's fit for publication. I think it's fit to be talked about on YouTube, and I'd rather scrub my brain.
We're an 18 and above show. We're an 18 and above show, Jim. Can I tempt you?
No, I'm not talking about it.
I'm definitely going to read it now. If that's
absolutely disgusting, and I can't bring myself to say it out loud.
I can't wait to read it.
So anyway, they decide to leave. They all get in the car. The car won't start, and then shadowy figures start to close in on them. And nope. I am not picking up the next issue. I recommend it to anybody who does like good horror comics, because clearly it's a good horror comic. But
that's what comics are supposed to do. They're supposed to elicit these feelings and emotions.
It's not my bag, baby.
All right, okay. Thanks for reading it though. But you've convinced me to give it a go. Moving on to Nightwing. Yeah, I definitely will. Nightwing. I cannot praise this book enough. Off camera, I constantly talk about it. It's fantastic. So very, very, very short recap again. Tom Taylor and Bruno Redondo took over from issue 78. They had some great arcs. The dialogue's snappy. The storytelling is really, really clever. Some of the way they panel the story and tell the story through the panels is really inventive and interesting. It just brings you in. They've added a bit of warmth and humour to Nightwing. And it's a character that I've liked, but I've never loved. But this converted me. Anyway, from issue 84, there's been various artists, and Redondo's come back and forth. But this, I think they've got together for one last arc, is what I think's happening. I think this is sort of the end of this creative team's run this book. I hope not, because it's so good. Earlier on in the arcs, in fact, issue 78 when they came on, they introduced this really new villain, I think, with quite a novel sort of penchant for killing people. So he's a serial killer. He's a rich Gothamite, much like Bruce Wayne. He's got this fortune that he's inherited through nefarious ways, and he likes to suck the hearts out of people. Why does he like to suck hearts out of people? Well, when he was a kid, he was very reserved. He wouldn't talk, and nothing really elicited any emotion from him. He used to torture animals and set fire to things. His parents asked the butler to try and bring him out of his shell, much like Bruce Wayne, you know, looking after Bruce after the death of his parents. But nothing would work. It also turns out that this this butler has actually stolen the identity of the butler, and he himself is like a killer and a psychopath. So anyway, they've got a kindred bond, and after his parents are killed, and you can find out how by reading the book, he becomes even more wealthy and he becomes Heartless. So Heartless has been going around killing people, has got a bit of a grudge against Nightwing because they've had some confrontations. So this is the big showdown, I think. An extra little bit to throw in there is his secret identity, or rather his non-serial killer identity, is actually an old school friend. Well, not friend, a school kid from Dick Grayson's school. And they didn't get on because, Dick had a punch up with him because he was ribbing him for the fact that his parents died, which obviously Dick wouldn't like. And so he punched this guy's teeth out. So he has sort of hatred towards Dick Grayson and Nightwing. But I don't think he knows that the two are the same. Again, to sort of sew in Dick's connection to this, the only thing that brought this young serial killer out of this non-talkative, non-emotional state was going to a circus one day and watching Dick's parents tumble to the floor and die, and seeing Dick's reaction and everyone else's reaction. That's what he fell in love with. He fell in love with the reaction. So his sort of modus operandi is that he does kill people pulling out their hearts, but what he does, he finds homeless people and he pulls their hearts out in front of their children because he likes and lives off the feeling he gets from seeing the distress caused by those killings. So very quick review of this book. Alfred Pennyworth died a while ago, and Dick Grayson inherited all the money. He wanted to do good with it, so he set up this foundation to do good in Bloodhaven. He's doing great there. Now he wants to do it in Gotham. It's a big fundraiser. While at the fundraiser, he goes up to do his talk to try and encourage all these rich Gothamites to, put some money in to help everybody. And of course, the serial killer is there in his, rich aristocratic identity to cause mayhem. While Dick's talking, an interviewer interrupts him and says, "Did you know that loads of mob money has been donated to the Alfred's Foundation? How could you use blood money?" And just before he's about to answer, because he doesn't know this has happened, the lights go, there's sparks everywhere, the shit's about to hit the fan, and then our villain turns around and says, right, to his butler, obviously, it's time to take some hearts. So this is setting up this final huge arc of Nightwing to be really, really interesting. Big showdown between the villain they introduced at the very beginning. So they're going to bookend it. It sounds really, really good. I can't wait to read it, and I think everyone should read it. Nightwing is amazing, but it's not my book of the week because we're going to get to that. So that's Nightwing. Give it a go. It's amazing. Moving on to something I know is very close to your heart, speaking of pulling hearts out, Cobra Commander, part of the Energon universe.
That's it, yeah. Cobra Commander issue 5, published from Image and Skybound, written by the amazing Joshua Williamson, who also wrote the previous Duke miniseries that ties into this as well. and art by Adrian Milana, with a cover also by Adrian Milana. So yeah, Cobra Commander, it actually puts the energon in Energon universe.
Ooh. Bold claims.
Yeah, well, we haven't really seen much energon in the Transformers or
No, but the
Rivals
Transformers, that's what they were looking for, right?
That's right. Yeah, it's their power source. It's what needs them. Most of them are in stasis, and they can't work without it. On the other hand, Destro from G.I. Joe fame is creating vehicles and weapons that basically need another power source, because any of Earth's normal power sources don't. They're not up to muster. They won't power them. So they
Let
need
me guess, they need energon, right?
Yeah. So Cobra Commander has found this huge source of energon in the Florida swamps. It's been harvested by a biker gang, the Dreadnoks. They were a lot of fun in the original animated series. A bit toothless, but they're not toothless anymore, as there are scenes of them torturing people and all sorts in this series. So yeah, they're planning to sell it to Destro's Mars Industries, which is a huge tech company, to power his weapons and vehicles. So issue 5 sees Cobra Commander consolidating his power and making a deal to do just that. And also there's another thing happening, because Cobra Commander is originally from this place called Cobra La, which is popularized in G.I. Joe the movie, canonized to the comics now. So that's in the Angelo universe version anyway. So that's really cool. They're against technology, mechanical technology of all forms. They believe organic is the way forward. So Megatron, as I said last week, is being kept prisoner by Cobra La. He escapes, and Cobra La decide to launch an organic spaceship to chase him to the stars. So I can see this is how it's possibly going to cross over with Void Rivals as well.
Okay, so the crossovers are continuing. They're subtle as well, aren't they, so far? They're not too abrasive.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say you could read any of the arcs and not have to read another one to understand what's going on.
Unlike any of the Spider-Man books that are out right now. So it continues to be great. Good. So
yeah,
I'm really pleased. I'm catching up with all the Energon universe, so I'll give you my thoughts soon as well. So moving on to Ultimate Black Panther number 4. And Wakanda is at war with Ra and Khonshu and the forces of Moon Knight. I know.
Okay.
I know. A little bit different, right? T'Challa is king because his father's died. And there's a spy in Wakanda giving information to Ra and Khonshu. Now, Ra and Khonshu, basically, they want to invade Wakanda, take it over for whatever nefarious need, and I guess take the resources. So they're investigating this, and T'Challa in issue 3 is sent to an area where they think they're hiding. And while he's there, he's shot down, and he meets Killmonger and Storm, who I think are a bit of an item in this. I'm not quite sure, but it does. I think they've got something going on. So they eventually trust him, and they lead him through this underground caverns to this hidden sort of gated area where there's this giant green ball of what looks like pulsating energy. And it's this huge thing. I don't know if it's a power source, but it's secret. Sorry?
Energon.
It could be Energon. Maybe they should cross over. But we don't know what it's for. Maybe other readers might know what it's for, but I don't yet. Anyway, he's been away for a few weeks, and he hasn't told anyone that he's been away for a few weeks. So they're not sure if he's alive or dead back in Wakanda. So Shuri, his sister, and the Queen, his wife, they have a bit of a girl boss beef, but ultimately they want the same things, but they just have different opinions on how they should proceed with them for the benefit of Wakanda. Anyway, while his wife is sleeping, an assassin tries to kill the Queen, and luckily, Shuri comes in, has a little fight with him, chases him off. So she's chasing him off down the streets of Wakanda, and she's on the floor. She's losing. She's just about to be killed by this assassin, who's one of the female elite warriors turned traitor. But guess what? Black Panther's back, and he saves Shuri. But before they can question this traitor, she explodes in this sort of beam of light. She just vanishes, reduced to bones. So they don't know what to do. So, T'Challa says, right, we need to do something about this. And he's assembling this little special team of his, which comprises of him, Shuri, Killmonger, and Storm. And he introduces those to his wife. And that's where the issue really ends. So it's real slow burn. I don't know where it's really going. I find the whole idea of Ra and Khonshu quite boring. I think they're connected to the Maker. I think they're part of the whole Maker's, I don't know, cabal of bad guys, but he's absent apparently in this, and this is what they've been doing in the meantime. Bit of a missed opportunity to do something special, Black Panther, but it might get better. Just slow and a bit boring. So again, it's a book I wouldn't really recommend unless you really love Black Panther. But moving on to a book I think you might like, Void Rivals #9, with a fantastic cover.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful cover there. You can see on that thumbnail. So Void Rivals issue 9, also from Image and Skybound, written by Robert Kirkman, who's also the showrunner of the entire whole Energon universe shebang. With beautiful art by an Italian artist, Lorenzo De Felici, and that cover, man, that cover. Look at Springer. Oh man, it just can draw some Transformers. Okay, so quick recap for this book. It's a huge sci-fi epic. Two warring planets, Agoria and Zetonia. They're either side of a black hole, but they've worked previously, centuries before, worked together to create a ring to encircle the black hole and stop their planets from being sucked into it. So the story starts when two pilots crash land and they're forced to work together to escape this planetoid. They awaken a transformer in the process. That's another story. Manage to escape in a ship that's melded together by alloy from both of their previously crashed vessels. They discover a secret conspiracy known only by the superiors of their respective planets and force them to going on the run together. So Derek is a male Agorian. He has visions and also an amazing talking gauntlet called the Handroid.
The Handroid.
It talks to him like Knight Rider, which is amazing.
It is brilliant, yeah. I really like it. It's clever.
Yeah, the letters page is called Talk to the Handroid, which I thought was really clever as well. And also, yes, Salila, who's a female Zetonian trained fighter. I think Jedi Knight kind of overtones to her. She's very, very cool. She has a dark past. I'm sure we'll learn more about it. So they've had to go on the run together through the wasteland, tracked by a bounty hunter employed by people to silence them. Proximus, an amazingly powerful individual.
Yeah, he's badass.
And the issue saw him catching up with them and impaling Salila on her own lance. And it's not controversial to say that Robert Kirkman knows his way around a cliffhanger.
Yeah, it caught me off guard. I was like, "Oh, you're not messing about."
I mean, Walking Dead and Invincible.
Oh, Invincible.
He's got a good pedigree. So anyway, this issue sees the Rivals recovering from the Proximus attack. She manages to retract the spear into her body, blocking the wound, but it's not going to last forever. They need to find help, so they're going across the wasteland. They manage to get to an outpost that Derek was familiar in his time as an edge walker, and they meet up with an Autobot Transformer Springer, who's in the outpost as a truck. He transforms. Sorry, not a truck, a car vehicle sort of thing. He transforms into his robot form, and they're like, oh, we need medical help, and he's like, I don't even know how I'm supposed to work on something this small. I don't have the tools for that. You're tiny people. I'm a
giant mechanical robot. Yeah,
exactly. And then while that happens, Proximus attacks again, and he actually manages to hold his own against a massive transformer.
Oh.
So
but he's badass, isn't he?
Springer's swinging his sword, and he's holding his own against him. It's nuts. So that's the main story, but also something I want to call the sad ballad of Skuxoid. The pig bounty hunter was introduced in the Transformers animated series. So previously, when threatened, he would also say, "Oh no, don't hurt me! My wife, I've got a wife and kids." So we actually see him after this mission return to his home. He walks in, and he's like, "Honey, kids, I'm home," and he's like,
so he doesn't have a wife and kids, does he?
No.
At first, I thought you meant they were dead, but no, I just think he pretends he has them, right? He's very lonely.
Yeah, just to try cowardly to get out of being killed. Yeah. And also the Quintessons characters introduced. You probably know him from Transformers the movie, the 1985 animated movie.
Mm-hmm.
They're a judicial society. No matter the verdict, it's always death in their eyes. So they discover that the mixed alloy ship of the Void Rivals the Skuxoid gave them could be the name Zetonia could be connected to Zerta Trion, and then it's immediately executed because uttering that name is forbidden. Now, I don't know who Zerta Trion is. However, Transformers lore buff here. Alpha Trion is the ancient Transformer, one of the 13 ancient Cybertronians, and the original carrier of the creation matrix, who passed it to Optimus Prime when he was Orion Pax. So
Okay.
I think Zerta Trion might be one of the original 13 Cybertronians that we've not seen in the lore. So it's cool that Kirkman's dipping into the comics.
Very cool. So it looks like we've got an alpha and a zeta, beginning and end, life, death, darkness, light. So that could be interesting. God damn you, Kirkman. I'm going to have to read this tonight.
Well, he said in the letters page that the Energon Universe books are the hottest thing in comics right now. He's not wrong. They're beating Spider-Man, they're beating Batman in the charts. And he said he's busy working on the years 2, 3, and 4, which gives me a lot of hope. And they're going to got big announcements at Comic-Con, which I'm hoping.
And Scarlet, the upcoming series, mate, that's blown loads of records right out of the water. That's going to be huge for them as well.
I mean, it's your girl from Birds of Prey, isn't it? Kelly Thompson's.
Yeah. Well, I'm definitely going to be reading that too. I can't wait. So Void Rivals, thumbs up.
Oh, it's my book of the week. 100%.
Oh man, I knew that was coming.
And Felici.
Fantastic. I'm glad it was good.
Every issue has been a joy.
Every issue has been a joy, right?
Every issue, yeah.
Yeah. So the whole thing's been running for about a year, hasn't it? Right?
Last June, Transformers started. Void Rivals started last June, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was 2003. Was it not 2003 that the first sort of mini came out, right?
The first mini of what? Sorry.
The first mini connected in the Energon universe.
Last June, Void Rivals issue 1.
Last June. Okay, so last year. Cool. Okay, so moving on to Blood Squad 7, a recommendation from you to me. Book of the week. Hands down, book of the week. Honestly, it is a massive slice of 90s nostalgia, so much so that 90s nostalgia was actually built in as a plot point in the book. So Joe Casey is back. We all know who Joe Casey is. Marvel, DC, Dark Horse, Image, every publisher, every major character. He's worked on it, and usually they're pretty good. So quick backstory. In 92, when Image Comics was formed, the idea was to create a shared universe for all these creators that came to Image. And that kind of started off on a good foot with like Spawn, Cyberforce, Savage Dragon, some others too. But due to some, let's just say, behind-the-scenes shenanigans, I think it kind of fell apart. They tried to do it recently with the, Invincible Universe and Image Universe, but I don't quite think it's been the same. Anyway, Joe Casey wants to bring back a shared universe to Image. And there was a previous little 3-parter called Dutch, right, who's a character that is also in Blood Squad 7, just to mention that first. So very 90s feel, comparisons to Youngblood. It evokes all those tropes that you love from the 90s and the style of art, the style of story, everything. It's super cool. So the story is set in modern day, and it's the backdrop is the Ukraine war that's going on right now. Now, the backstory inside the book is that 30 years ago there was a Blood Squad 7, and these guys were hailed as huge celebrities, endorsements, a bit like the boys, you know. So all the superheroes are like superstars, pop stars. Due to something we don't know yet, and I'm guessing because of maybe what they did and how they acted and the things they got involved with, that the public and the government said we need to shut them down. So they were dissolved. They're gone. They don't exist. But they've secretly been resurrected with a new team. Running that new team is Erica Richmond, who was codename Infinity. So she's running this new team for the government, and they want to make that public, but they can't just yet. So all this stuff going on in Ukraine, super secret. Speaking of which, in the Ukraine, a number of this new team is out there eviscerating Russians, like chopping heads off, doing all sorts of crazy stuff. And they introduced a lot of characters, but the two ones they focus on are Ripcord and Night Striker. And Ripcord has this like glove, or a couple of gloves with these metal serrated ripcords that he uses to lop heads off. Fantastic. And it is fantastic. It's total 90s art, heads lopping stuff. Anyway, back in Washington with Erica. She has another team member on the team who she's benched to act as a field operative, to run the team from the big rooms, all the computers and everything. So she's going to be the field leader, and she turns out to be the new Infinity. And guess what? it's her daughter as well. So there's a lot like a mother-daughter relationship thing going on there. Really, really cool. They touched on some other characters from the past who look amazing. Really, I can't wait to see what they do with those. But we jump back to present day, and Ripcord's handler receives a phone call from Ripcord. He's now on his R&R after eviscerating Russians. And the scene is basically Ripcord in a dressing gown, covered head to toe in blood. His ripcord covered in blood, and he's at some weird underground club sex dungeon, and he's basically beheaded all these women and these men in their bondage gear and everything, and he's saying, like, oh, I might need a bit of help. I love it. It's 90s all over. It's exactly what you want on a Saturday where you've got a nice cup of tea and you've got nothing else to do. Sharp dialogue, nice art. It's brilliant. They also introduce a couple of other things. So if you think it's all going to be about fighting Russians, it's not, in the form of the Kilgore cult and the Gang of Four. So I think that we're going to have some, team versus team and some other intrigue. It's great. Book of the week. I thoroughly recommend it. And I think you'll love it too, Jim. So I do like some books.
You're welcome.
Just not all of them. So anyway, looking forward to next week, Jim. Is there a couple of books you're looking forward to the most?
Well, as you know, I'm the unofficial Bloodhunt correspondent.
Rather
channel.
you than me. Rather you than me.
So it's Bloodhunt Black Panther and Bloodhunt Midnight Suns.
Okay. For me, there's a couple of books, I think. Grommets, which is a new book from Rick Remender. Cool. And one that I'm most looking forward to is William of Newbury, which is from our friend Michael Avon Oeming, who we love. So yeah, those two there. So that's it for the week. Let us know what you think. Like, subscribe, share with your friends, all that jazz. It helps us. Leave some comments. Tell us we're right, tell us we're wrong. So take care. Say goodbye, Jim.
Bye-bye.
See you next week.